Today we are exploring an abandoned state sanatorium that began operating in 1910 for people who are sick with tuberculosis. Over the years, the sanatorium would grow to the campus you see today, only to be left abandoned. Come with us as we discover the history and see what's left behind. As we first entered the campus, we could hear workers in the distance clearing debris from the front of the property.
What's up, guys? So today we're exploring this really cool hospital. It's in the process of being demolished, so we're really trying to do this before we can't anymore. So this place has a really awesome morgue that we're really excited to see. It's definitely a little more risky, so we're hoping we're going to get in this place. Trying to get to the building that has the morgue in it, and there's cars out in the front. So we decided to climb up this building, which has many flights of stairs.
Too many flights.
Just to see if we can get a better vantage point.
And you know what? We did it. We did that.
In the 1950s, there started to be fewer and fewer cases of tuberculosis, and the state sanatorium began taking in patients with other crippling conditions. By the year 1963, they had changed the name from a state sanatorium to a hospital. This building we are looking at today was the newest and largest on the campus. We were able to make our way into the main facility unnoticed, and started our exploration on the first floor. This hospital featured a glazed tile look, which was popular in the 60s and 70s. This was the old Hospital Auditorium. It's hard to tell now, but there would have been rows of seats filling this entire room. All that's left now is the red curtains. Though the stage still remains, it is completely rotted and collapsed. On the upper floor, the old film projectors are still in perfect condition and seemingly have been frozen in time. Cautiously made our way through the first floor, listening to workers right outside the windows, wondering if they could hear the crunching of the broken tiles under our feet as we looked for a way up to the next floor. Before this hospital opening in 1910, it was met with a lot of resistance from the local community. People were scared that housing tuberculosis patients would pose risks to the surrounding communities. In these times, tuberculosis was still largely untreatable and misunderstood. Up until the beginning of the 19th century, the disease would kill 1 in 7 of all people that ever lived. One of the patients here wrote a book about her stay here in the state sanatorium. She had spent her entire childhood stuck in the hospital battling the horrible disease, all the way until age 15. She spent most of her childhood in a full-body cast. In this state, all you can ever really do is observe your surroundings, and she can recall children being dropped off at the hospital to die alone. In the 1930s and 40s, there's a sad truth that a lot of American families would just abandon their children at hospitals like this one. Whether it be for a disease or mental illness, a lot of children would suffer during this period of time in history.
Just found the hydrotherapy room right here, so this is where all those giant tubs are.
Hydrotherapy tubs were used for pain relief and treatment. The tubs would deliver hot or cold water to the whole body with a range of different uses and techniques. In this room, there was a full body immersion tub and also a larger stand-up tub. This next room was used for sanitizing the medical equipment for the hospital, and you can see the focus of this room was the 19th century autoclave, which looked amazing with the mint green tiles in the room. This was a gas autoclave used to sterilize more sensitive supplies.
We're on the third floor now, so we're gonna go check out the operating room. So there's supposed to be one of the lights left, so we're gonna go check it out.
Right next door, we found the operating rooms. Fortunately, one of the rooms still had the original surgery light, still completely intact. The light was surprisingly big, and a lot more outdated looking than the modern surgery lights you see nowadays. The X-ray room also still had some old equipment left behind after all these years. There was one more piece of equipment that we wanted to see that we had a hard time finding. We knew there was supposed to be something called the bone stretcher that we ended up searching all over for. From what I've heard, this medical device would be used to stretch limbs or broken bones back into place. I had a hard time finding any information on this piece of equipment, but it definitely carries an unsettling name if that's truly what it's called. On this explore, we saved the best for last, and for us it was the fully intact morgue. We headed down into the pitch black first floor. Again, this also took us a good amount of time to find after wandering around this dark maze. The entire morgue had seemed like it was perfectly preserved. Everything was in such good shape that you'd think this place would have closed down a lot sooner than it did. We finished up in the large building and headed over to some of the earliest remaining buildings. This building was the most intact from the original sanatorium, and it almost feels like you're in a completely different location. The majority of the original sanatorium buildings are gone today, with a few remaining. The hospital would run all the way until 1993, when the state no longer had a need for this outdated hospital and it closed its doors for good.
So we just finished up here. There's still so much more to see, but it's really tough because there's a lot of workers here. It's kind of sketchy, but I'm really glad we got to see that morgue before this place was torn down, which, like I said, it's going to be torn down soon. So we're just kind of trying to make our way out of this place.
Unfortunately, over the past couple of years, this hospital has been the target of heavy vandalism. Especially with the impact of COVID-19, it seemed that with a short period of time, there had been little to no security, and it became swarmed with people going and spray painting the halls and equipment that has sat untouched for all these years. Today, what remains looks nothing like what you've seen in this episode, and the entire hospital was torn apart, and demolition has begun of the 60s era building. We were happy we got to document the remains of this hospital and sanatorium, and we thank all of you that stuck around to watch the end of this video. If you enjoyed watching, Remember to like and leave a comment on which part of the hospital you found most interesting. Make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.